Now, this isn't just politics, it's every single aspect of society, your and mine day to day life, or both of our day to day lives. Relationships. Have you ever thought about how weird relationships seem to be now? Relationships have been weird for a while, but especially in this collective that we live in, we should have access to people. You should never have to be alone. You could be on an island in the middle of the Pacific, and with Starlink, you can talk to people. You literally carry around in your pocket access to all human knowledge that's recorded on the digital space, and being able to talk to any other human being on that network, which is literally billions. But we feel alone and isolated. And in the most developed countries in the world, the most wealthy countries in the world, we are not having children. Family is collapsing. And people want to use narratives that it's X, Y, and Z. I'm going to tell you what it is. It's our handling of crazy, what we believe to be crazy. Does that sound crazy to you? That we live in the most advanced, wondrous time in human history, and people are suffering needlessly. People don't want to have kids. People don't want to have relationships. People don't know how to have relationships. Why? Because we live in a world that assumes that humans, every single one, is born and just pops and grows like a seed, irrespective of their environment, irrespective of the world, irrespective of anything else than other than their self and their soul manifests. That is not true. We are born, we develop, we learn, we build models of the world. That's what shapes it. So if we don't talk about stuff, we don't learn about it. If we develop weird interpretations of things like sex, we develop weird people who don't know how to have sex, how to be comfortable with their sexuality. They have to come up with odd constructions. They have to play games. And they don't know how to deal with it because mom and dad were too fucking afraid to talk about it. That's reality. Or mom and dad wanted to talk about something else and not tell them anything. That's what breeds these problems with these sexual deviancies that we talk about. This is my humble opinion, is that in many of these weird, fucked up, crazy, not meat and potatoes type of sexual things, I'm not talking about just homosexuality. I'm talking about a lot of these things come from an inability to have a healthy relationship with sex at an early age, understanding. And I'm not talking about having sex. I'm talking about not making it a fearful thing. It's not about sex is the most awesome thing in the world when you're 8. It's about you don't need to be terrified of it. You're not going to go to hell. You're not going to be ruined by it. You're not going to be destroyed by it. It's not evil. You put those seeds in a child's head and you make weird connections. Later on, they have to figure it out. It's like you teach a kid that there's magic, all this stuff, there's Santa Claus, and then you tell them there's not. And all of a sudden, they have difficulty in transferring and figuring out what is true, what is magic, what is real. We kind of laugh at that, but that's a real thing that happens to people. Same thing with love, education, all of these things. We don't stop and really think about, oh, well, how the hell do they learn this? How did I learn this? We just assume it's going to be fine. Well, guess what? When you see a lot of these problems that we're seeing in the world, it's because it's not fine, because these things need to be learned. That you need to have an environment that's conducive for this. Korea and Japan, which are suffering some of the greatest issues with population decline, are not going to solve it by tax credits. They are creating a world where people are not being able to be human. They're not able to live a life. They are cogs in a machine. They're ground up and unable to make connections at a later date because they do not have the skill set. They do not have the models of self and of social interaction and of ability to deal with discomfort and fear and challenge in a real world situation. And they remain isolated because that's how they deal with crazy. And that's going to grow. It's already growing. The only reason America is growing now is because of immigration. We are doing this to ourselves. We talk about the gender issues that we have now, and we have the proliferation of transgender or non heterosexuality norms, right? It's not that. That's not the key point of all of this. The point of it is that people don't know how to be with other people because the societies that we make are sick. They're for the point and purpose of market commerce only, without taking into effect, not taking into calculation what it is to be human. What is our actual purpose? Meaning, how do we work? That we're social creatures, that we're meant to be with each other, that we're meant to have time off, that we're meant to not just be a literal cog in a machine, that we're more than that, and that we're also less than that, that we're a lot of things other than what we act like we are. And it's not as simple as snapping one's fingers and solving this. And that's part of the problem, is that when we even look at it, one of the reasons we can't figure this out is because we need to, well, what's the problem? What's the solution? Motherfucker, everything needs to change. That's the solution. There's every individual person on this earth needs to get their shit together and focus on themselves. And guess what? If we actually did that, we collectively would follow through. But it's hard to do that. How are we going to do that? How are we going to grow? How are we going to have more kids when we are creating people right now who cannot look at each other in the eyes, do not understand what sex is outside of pornography, because parents don't want to talk about it. Not just don't want to talk about it, they don't know how to talk about it, because they weren't taught either. But guess what? Humans, creatures of active inference like us, we need to know. We come up with something. We fill the gap with whatever we come up with. That's how we experience the world. That's why you can experience something as crazy when it shouldn't be crazy. When somebody challenges you, doesn't mean that they don't love you. Yes, some people can. Some people can challenge you and mean to fuck with you. But we live in a world where unless you get it perfect and they do what you want, then maybe it's not the one that you're meant to be. All of these aspects of love and romance that are taught are Disney-esque horse shit. That is not true. When you are with somebody, their existence is intrinsic to your own. You accept them. They accept you. And that doesn't mean that you don't challenge each other. That does mean that you challenge each other, that you push each other, that you try to do better for each other, that you try to make a better world, that you care about you and other people, and that you care about other people as much as you care about yourself. And if you can't do that, then you are incapable of loving other people healthily, in a healthy manner. End of story. We don't want to accept that. We don't want to talk about that. No, 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 no. Because it is counter to the realities that we have built for ourselves. Because they are fed to us in no small part through media, through our collective interactions, through social media, because it's not taught. Because we don't say this is how it should be. And in fact, and if we do, a lot of times people are then, in fact, when people do that, most people experience people like that as crazy, because what they are saying is counterintuitive to the world as they believe it to be true. That's the reality of all this, is that no matter what you want to believe, no matter what you want to believe, reality is going to reality. And that much of our suffering is because people like ourselves, you included, simply do not want to update their understanding of the world, are not capable of it, don't realize what it means. Because it does. You have to change yourself. You have to change what you believe to be true, to accept some of these things, to realize, well, you know what? Maybe I'm not the good guy. That doesn't mean you're the bad guy. If you automatically jump to that, it's just because you're living in a fucking story. And the problem is that you're dragging us with you. Enough. We all need to grow up. We weren't taught to be adults. We were literally raised to be children, adult children, emotionally incapable of understanding these things. It's not that it was purposeful, it's just that it wasn't ever taught in any meaningful way, and over a period of time it's degraded because it's learned. It is not just something that comes out from your natural progression. There are far less adults in the room anymore, even at the highest levels, because we perpetuate this based off of theatricality and narrative. And those people who win are not the most capable. They're probably, in fact, some of the least capable. We don't realize that because we experience it as crazy. We experience not having a relationship when everything else is connected as crazy, instead of realizing, you know what? What's wrong? What's actually wrong? Isn't that kind of crazy? Think about it. That you stop and you assign something as being just crazy and that it's wrong. And that you like it and that it's powerful. And that when you hate it, you can feel powerful. Versus, why do I feel this way? What about this thing is a threat to me? I'm telling you, if and when you're capable of doing that, you'll find the vast majority of these things are nothing. You've wasted so much of your life fighting nothing. And because we all do that and we see others doing that, we believe that's what's true. And you realize that we self-perpetuate much of this nonsense. And that's why, for most of us, these things can feel crazy. Not because they actually are crazy, but because we have made an interpretation of the world that is not even fucking close to true.